Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Friday. We are nearly at the weekend. I hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Busy day today. I'm recording this in the morning, obviously, and pretty much as soon as I'm done, I'm jumping in the car and heading over to London Colney for Mikel Arteta's press conference, which is taking place a little bit later on, 1:30 p.m. UK time, ahead of the game against Manchester United, of course, this weekend in the FA Cup third round. I will try and record something after the press conference, going over the sort of big talking points from what Arteta has had to say in terms of team news, transfers, anything like that, the reaction from Tuesday night's defeat. So I will try and record a second show a little bit later on today. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But until then, I thought I'd pop back on here. We will have a look at that Man United game. Arsenal wearing their white shirts again as part of the No More Red campaign with Adidas, trying to tackle or raise awareness to tackle knife crime around North London. So we'll talk about that game, look at what changes, if any, Mikel might make from the team that played against Newcastle in midweek in the Carabao Cup semi-final. We'll talk about the latest stuff going on with transfers. Obviously, myself and James Ben sat down for Inside Arsenal Extra Time yesterday and had a good sort of look at January and the potential options open to Arsenal if they do any business, which we're not sure yet if they will, of course. And if you haven't seen that yet or listened to that yet, you can find that. That was published last night, of course. But let's start with today then. And we'll start with the game against Manchester United for the second successive season. Really big third round FA Cup tie for Arsenal at the Emirates. Last season, it was Liverpool in the third round, which they ended up losing, wearing, of course, the all-white kit as part of the No More Red campaign. This year, it's Manchester United. United side, you would think, are going to arrive in pretty confident form and mood, after what they did last week at Anfield. Very good 2-2 draw for them in the Premier League. Arsenal, of course, going into it on the back of a really sort of morale-sapping, disappointing, head-scratching defeat against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup first leg. So can Arsenal respond? If you're watching on screen, you can see the kit that Arsenal will be wearing, that all-white, No More Red kit. Obviously, it's a brilliant campaign. I know and I understand people not liking the kit. I don't personally like it very much either. But obviously, look, there are bigger things than football and bigger things than results. And, it is a very, very worthwhile campaign and a much needed campaign. And it's very much been brought to light again in the last couple of weeks with some of the really sad stories we've heard of knife crime in and around London. So, it's a really good cause, and it's great that Arsenal are trying to raise as much as awareness and the work that they do with Adidas in the local area as part of this campaign as well. Hopefully Arsenal can get the win in this shirt. They've not had the best of luck of it so far. Obviously, he's had some bad defeats in the cup wearing it, have won once over it in that game against Oxford. Hopefully they can get the job done against United this weekend in the white shirt. United are going to be playing in blue. So you're going to have Arsenal in white and Manchester United in blue. It's going to be quite a strange spectacle seeing those teams wearing those colours when they are playing each other. But yeah, there's a kit on the screen if you are watching. This was the lineup Arsenal played against Newcastle, obviously, in midweek. So we've got it on screen here. Obviously, Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly was the back four. Then you had the sort of Partey, Odegaard, Rice midfield with Havertz, Trossard and Martinelli up front. And when you look ahead to the game this weekend and you look at what changes Mikel might be able to make, there's not many because of availability, of course, at the moment. But you look at, Calafiori maybe at left back instead of Miles Lewis-Skelly, even though I thought Miles Lewis-Skelly was Arsenal's best player against Newcastle on Tuesday night. I would imagine the midfield's going to be the same. Obviously, there's Marino, who you could potentially turn to. If you do that, then you'd have to take one of Partey or Rice out. I don't think you will. I think there's been a big enough gap between the Tuesday night game and the Sunday. I know Tottenham's to come on Wednesday, and you've got to kind of balance that and maybe protect a couple of players, but I still think the gap's probably big enough for him to go with what he views as his strongest midfield, which you would think would be Partey, Odegaard and Rice again. Gabriel Jesus, I think, would be in line to come into this team, potentially for Kai Havertz, or maybe even on the right-hand side of the attack in place of Leandro Trossard. So you could play Jesus, Havertz and Martinelli. I do like that idea, I have to say, of Jesus having a go on the right-hand side. I'd liked him in sort of combination with Havertz, get into the central areas, almost playing as a two as well. I mean, there are other options. You could definitely play as with kind of two holders, but basically have Partey and Rice next to each other, then have Odegaard more in a central area as an out-and-out number 10 in front of the forwards as well. So there are other options for Mikel Arteta to go with. I don't think he will, because he doesn't tend to sort of switch up the formation, does he? So I imagine when you look at this team, the sort of main potential changes, Calafiori in for Lewis Skelly, and then Gabriel Jesus for one of the forwards, potentially Leandro Trossard. Let me know your thoughts on that in terms of what Mikel should do or what you think he should do for the game against Manchester United, who should come in, what the lineup should be. Let me know your thoughts. I'll be doing a preview show tomorrow, of course, ahead of that game. And we'll see what Mikel Arteta's got to say a little bit later on in his press conference. Okay, moving on to the latest sort of transfer stories doing the rounds over here in the UK. Now, myself and James Bennett spoke at length yesterday when we were going through the sort of potential options that could be available to Arsenal to strengthen this month. And obviously, Kvaratskhelia is absolutely in the headlines at the moment with the news that he could well be leaving Napoli this month. Napoli could be open for a deal of around the sort of 70 million euro mark, or 80 million euros. So I think about 70 million pounds. PSG believed to be talking to Napoli at the moment. We've had David Ornstein yesterday doing a story in the evening on the back of those reports from Italy saying that Liverpool would potentially consider a move for him if he is definitely on the market this month. Chelsea as well, amongst the interested club. No word on Arsenal, and as myself and James were speaking about last night, I just won't be, if he is on the market genuinely at that sort of price and available, I will not be able to get my head around Arsenal not entering the sort of run-in for him. Obviously, it might be difficult to get it done because lots of other clubs are going to be interested, and depends on the wages being offered and all that sort of stuff. But for Arsenal to not even be in the run-in when they desperately need a winger, that is definitely, and you look at it and think that is a real, they've wanted to move, they've wanted to sign a left winger for a while now. They've had a go. We know they were willing to spend more money than this, than it looks like Kvaratskhelia will be worth on Mudryk just a couple of years ago. Didn't get it done. But they were willing to spend more money on Mudryk. And so for Kvaratskhelia to suddenly come on the market at a very attainable price in the modern day market, not huge wages either on the sort of grand scheme of things. For Arsenal not to go into the mix, I won't be able to get my head around that one. I have to say, I'll be very, very surprised. We'll wait and see what happens. But at the moment, there's no suggestion. I've certainly not heard anything, and there's been no suggestion elsewhere that Arsenal are sort of about to enter the conversation for Kvaratskhelia. And I think that'll be a real disappointment to me, and I think to a lot of Arsenal fans out there, because it'll be a bit of a head scratcher, that one, when the need for a new winger is there, and you've got one of the best in the world, and the age that Arsenal love to sort of sign, and to not even try and do it. I think it'll be a bit of a head scratcher. And lots of you have been getting in touch, sort of speaking about it and asking about it to me. Is like at the top there, Agron says you buy Kvaratskhelia, and then you have Saka and Kava on the wings, both 22, 23 years old for 8 or 9 years. You don't have to even think about those two positions anymore. It's madness if Arsenal don't try and get him. He destroys defenders and creates chaos to opposition. He does. He's an absolute joy to watch. Kvaratskhelia, I love watching him. Neil says Kvaratskhelia is perfect for this team. My dream signing. He's got that Alex Hleb-esque style, close control going on. Love him. Come on, Arsenal. And before this November, says Kava will be absolutely unreal, but I won't get my hopes up. My dream, virtually impossible, low as Kava and Gyökeres, and then get Rangers next window. Gyökeres and Kvaratskhelia in the same window. That would certainly add to Arsenal's attacking options. Don't think that'll happen, but that's no surprise, I have to say, to see some of the reaction from you guys on this one. It just seems like a great opportunity for someone, that real. It doesn't happen especially not in January, that you get these sort of market opportunities arrive. But this looks like one that could well be there to really go and try and sign. And it'll be really disappointing in my mind if Arsenal don't do that, and it doesn't appear that they're going to, but we shall see what happens in the next week or so. Aaron's also sort of talking about Kvaratskhelia here. He's got in touch. But it was this sort of bottom one here where we've seen reports recently in the last sort of 24 hours or so about Arsenal and Isak next summer, and it not being able to do it, and the Cronkies not being willing to fund that. I take all that with a bit of a pinch of salt, I have to say, at this early stage. But Aaron asked, do you think it would be almost impossible for Arsenal to sign Isak next summer? We have to go on and see, but the looks of it, the immensely high price tag, contracts left, and if Newcastle qualifies for European spot, it does look impossible. Then nothing's impossible. You put a massive money down, then anything's possible. But it does look tough, just because even with this contract sort of dispute, or whatever you want to call it, that's going on between Alexander Isak and Newcastle. Newcastle are in such a strong position because he's got 3.5 years left on his current deal. So they're in no panic, no rush. It's not like he's got 2 years left in his deal and they have to make a decision on him. So it does look difficult, but if Newcastle don't qualify for the Champions League, which we'll wait and see at the moment, they look well set to do that because they're playing very, very well. But if they don't, then I don't view it as impossible. I view it as unlikely, but I don't think I'd ever put the impossible tag on it. We've seen that Arsenal are willing to spend big in the past. They did it on Nicolas Pepe. They did it on Declan Rice. They will spend big. This would potentially have to be the biggest of the lot. But, 3 successive years in the Champions League, if they qualify, which we think they definitely will, whatever happens between now and the end of the season, money's there. They do have the money there. If they really want to do it, they could, I think. We'll have to wait and see if it does. But yeah, unlikely. But in response to your question, Aaron, I wouldn't sit here right now and label it as impossible. Elsewhere on the transfer scene, Marquinhos is now headed out on loan again. He's gone to Cruzeiro till the end of I think it's the end of Brazilian season, which is December. So he's there on loan until then. Obviously, just come back from his spell at Fluminense, where he kind of did all right. It wasn't the best of loan spells. Obviously, they didn't turn it permanent. Made a fair amount of appearances, mainly off the bench for them, but he's come back now and headed out on loan. I did have a comment from someone, I don't think I actually included it on the show, saying, why have we sent him back out on loan again? Why didn't we use him? Well, I just don't think Arsenal feel that he's very usable in the Premier League. It's just simple as that, really. When it wasn't an expensive signing, it was that kind of signing we all wanted to see, I think, from South America, with Edu using those contacts to bring in some youngsters and see if they work out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And on Marquinhos, it just looks more and more likely that it was one that's not going to work out. He's had a few loan spells now. He's never really done it in any of those loan spells. Hopefully we're with Cruzeiro. I can never pronounce that one right. And he can earn himself a permanent move away, because I don't see any sort of future for him long-term at Arsenal. Mika Bierif, he's also about to sign for Monaco. Now, as you can see, Fabrizio reported yesterday, the fee is about 13 million with 2 million in add-ons. He's having a medical today, I understand. And Arsenal will get a bit of a cash injection from that. It's not going to be massive, but they'll get about sort of 30%, I believe, of that. I don't know the exact figure, but I know all I was described as it was significant. And I believe Arsenal, on a couple of their departures, their recent departures, they've got a sell on of around sort of 25-30% on those players. So I would imagine Bierif is similar to that. And if that's the case, it's not going to be groundbreaking summer money, but it's a little bit of money to add to the coffers potentially. So interesting to see how he gets on. Joining Flo Balogun, of course, at Monaco. So 2 ex-Arsenal strikers going to be playing together. They did play together for the under-21s as well at Arsenal. So good luck to Mika Bierif. Right, moving on to a couple of your questions and comments before we wrap this one up. Sorry, my throat is still struggling, as you can tell. Weed says, Happy New Year, Charles, and fellow Gooners. Can you still say Happy New Year now? What are we on? About the 10th of January? I'll let you off, Weeds. I'll let you off. Happy New Year, Charles and fellow Gooners. If we were to fast track any forward, the easiest to get would be Vlahovic. Juve are in more financial trouble and could probably get him in a good deal. Physical, proven goal scorer. I've said this before. Whenever I see links with Arsenal and Vlahovic, I'm always a bit suspect about it, because even in that summer when it was all over, was it summer or was it January? I can't even remember. There was, every other day it was a report, Arsenal having bids not back, the Vlahovic's agents not answering the phones to Arsenal, all that sort of stuff. And the whole time when I was talking to people that I sort of knew about it, they were always like, it's not right. Where Arsenal's name's being used here to try and drum up interest from Juventus and for Fiorentina to be able to get more money out of Juventus. And that's what I was always told. And so I never really reported that interest as genuine. So whenever I see anything now about Vlahovic and Arsenal, I still think back to that and think, I'm not sure. At that time, I don't think Arsenal were really that interested in him, despite what was being said. So I'm still not sure that there is that interest. And I've never been told myself that there is genuine interest between Arsenal and Vlahovic. I'm also a bit suspect about him as a player, to be honest, as well. From what I've seen of him, decent enough in Serie A, scores penalties a lot. He is a big guy. He's powerful. I don't know. He's not one that I've ever watched and thought, oh, he'd be brilliant at Arsenal. Like Gyökeres, I've seen with my own eyes, and even in that game against Arsenal, when Arsenal hammered Sporting, I still was impressed by Gyökeres in that game and what he did and how he battled against the likes of Saliba and Gabriel. And then how he really sort of bullied Kivior in those last sort of 15 minutes when Kivior came on. He did enough to really impress me, even in a bad defeat. in that game. I've not really sat and watched Vlahovic and thought, yeah, you're great. I want Arsenal to sign you. So yeah, not for me, Weeds. He's just not one that really floats my boat, I have to say. But thanks for your comment. And Red Cannoner says, I would definitely go for a winger if I had to choose one. Imagine the current squad of a peak Sadio Mane type of player on the left wing. Nobody would complain about us needing a striker, because I think in Arteta's way of playing, number 9 position is never going to let lots of goals. I thought that was quite interesting to think about that, because I mean, obviously Orba scored a lot of goals in that time under Arteta before they fell out. But I was thinking, I'm not sure I agree. I could see this season a number 9, a real sort of lethal number 9, I think would be on a lot of goals for Arsenal right now, because Havertz has already got a few, and he's definitely not prolific, and he's missed a fair amount of chances. I think you've got a better finisher in the end as your number 9. I could easily see this season a top number 9 having around 15 goals already for Arsenal and being on course for a sort of 25, 30 goal season. So I'm not sure I agree with that. I get what you mean. And I think wingers are so important to the way Arsenal play and the way Arteta sets his team up. So I kind of, I do feel like a winger's probably the more likely option in January if Arsenal are going to do anything. But I think over the course of the next 2 windows, they need to sign both. They need to sign a top winger and they need to sign a top striker. But I do think that a top striker could score goals in this team. I think Arsenal create enough chances, and Arsenal's forwards, whether that be Jesus or Havertz playing as a 9, miss enough chances for me to believe that a really top forward could score plenty of goals in this team, despite the fact that the wingers, are obviously so influential in how Arsenal play. Right, that's it for this morning. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to my dodgy voice for the last 16 minutes or so. Like I said, I'm going to get this uploaded, head off to London Colney, and see what Mikel Arteta has to say in his press conference. So until then, speak to you soon, everyone. Again, apologies for the voice. Take it easy. Bye-bye.